Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Preseason 9 League of Legends video. Today I'll be covering who I think are the top 5 bot lane carries that you should learn during Preseason 9. This is not necessarily a list I think that are the best for new players, but instead once you do spend some time learning these champions, they become very strong and should be very effective for you for when Season 9 comes out. If you see any champion mentioned in this video you'd like to give a shot, head over to u.gg who are partnered with me on this video. All you have to do is head over to the website, type in the name of the champion you want information on, and you'll get a full breakdown on anything you need to know like the recommended runes, summoners, skill order, and item build. So for the best builds in 30 seconds or less, head over to u.gg or click my link below. So now let's begin our video by looking at one of our runners-up, Heimerdinger.
Indeed, a wise choice.
Heimerdinger makes it into this video as a runner-up because he is one of the best bullies in the entire bottom lane. This is a really solid thing in this meta because of the turret plating. It's generally a pretty good thing as Heimerdinger to push the lane and put a lot of pressure on the enemy team, but you're rewarded for it even more since you will get additional gold from any tower plates that you do take down. This is going to make Heimerdinger snowball just a little bit harder than he did before, and it's very annoying to deal with. Once him and his support champion do take down that bottom tower, they can rotate around the map and do the same in other lanes as well and get their team a really big advantage. He's then a fairly bursty champion as well, and if he can find a squishy carry in his full combo, he will pretty much just delete them 100-0. Since that bottom lane usually has at least one squishy champion in it, sometimes two, this is going to be really great for you. He's also a fairly versatile champion as well, because he can max his Q ability to put a lot of pressure on the enemy team with his turrets, or he can of course max his W instead to be even burstier. This comes at the cost of him being a very squishy and a mobile champion, however, so positioning is key. If the enemy catches you in a bad position and you don't have anything like a Zhonya's or a Flash available, well, you're pretty much just screwed. Those are a couple of the reasons he didn't quite make it into that top 5. Of course, he doesn't have a great late game either, but in the right hands you can put a lot of pressure on the enemy team, try to take down towers, and snowball the game that way. He's a pretty damn solid champion at the moment and very frustrating to deal with, just not quite top 5 worthy. For our last runner-up, we've got Caixa.
I came for the hunt, but I'll stay for the fruit.
Caixa makes it into this video as our second runner-up because she's got some very high snowball potential, great scaling, and hybrid ratios on her Q, W, and R. This means she can go for either a mixed build or she can go for an AD or AP build, although AP was recently nerfed with that damage on the passive. Either way though, it is pretty nice because if you did pick Caixa early on and then your team went full AD afterwards, you could always transition into an AP build. You've also got some pretty decent mobility as well, and you are a strong duelist. This will get even better when you do get to upgrade your E ability because you will get a stealth whenever you use it, and this will be pretty hard for the enemy team to keep track of you in team fights or of course just duels. You can then use your ultimate either offensively or defensively as well, which is a really nice option to have. You can use it either to jump onto an enemy and delete them, or of course you can just use it for the shield and become a lot tankier. Before Caixa was nerfed, I'd put her at either the number 1 or 2 spot in this video, but she did receive a couple nerfs and therefore is just a little bit weaker than she was previously. She unfortunately doesn't have any crowd controls in her kit, and she is a pretty squishy champion as well, so positioning is pretty important. You're also not going to be the strongest champion when you are behind as well, because usually you want to use your ultimate as a way to jump on enemies and delete them, and if you are too squishy and you don't really have any items, you're just going to end up dying if you do that. Like I did previously mention, however, she does have really high scaling, so as long as you can make it into the later stages of the game, you can definitely carry as Caixa. Alright, now let's officially kick off the top 5 with number 5, Ezreal.
Alright, just one more time.
Ezreal takes the number 5 spot because he's got some very good poke damage, and when he's mastered, he's an insanely strong champion. He'll be able to shoot out his Q ability all throughout the lane phase, which can net him a lot of poke damage onto the enemy team, or some really easy last hitting. Since you do want to go for a mana immune in your build, this is also really great for stacking your tier. Ezreal is then one of the safest picks in that bottom lane as well because he has a really solid reposition from his E ability, Arcane Shift. You can use this to jump away to safety if the enemy is trying to get on top of you, or of course you can use it offensively as well and jump onto the enemy and do your damage. With your rework W, it's also a really easy way to proc that ability and do a bunch of burst damage onto the champion as long as you can hit that W. Ezreal, however, is a pretty hard to master champion and he is very skill shot reliant. If you're not landing those Qs and your Ws, you're going to be doing some very limited damage. As long as you can land your abilities over and over again throughout the lane phase, it's going to be very hard to deal with, and there's not a lot of champions out there that can out-sustain that damage. On Ezreal, you will of course be going for Kleptomancy as your keystone, so landing these Qs is even more important than it already was. Since your Q ability does proc on-hit effects, it will proc your Kleptomancy, and if you're landing it over and over again, you can get a ton of extra gold and some really nice items throughout the lane phase to help with your sustain. So that's pretty much how it is as Ezreal. As long as you can land your abilities, you have the potential to be one of the best bot laners there is. However, if you miss them, you're not going to be that strong of a champion. Coming in at number 4, we've got Misfortune.
Do I look like I'm interested in talking it out?
Misfortune makes the list at number 4 because she's got a really strong early game and some great poke damage as well. If she's able to last hit a minion with her Q ability and it bounces to an enemy champion behind them, it will do some significant damage. If she's taken Dark Harvest and she has some decent lethality as well, this has the potential to one-shot a squishy target below 50% health. Of course, just during the lane phase, this will be really hard damage to deal with, so you have to play very carefully against a Misfortune's early game. Her E ability is also decent as well because it gives her a slow in her kit and also reveals the area, which is great for checking brush as you move around the map to make sure you're safe. Misfortune, of course, also has the luxury of moving around the map really quickly because of her strut ability. This ability will give her a bunch of extra movement speed after she hasn't taken damage for 5 seconds, which can allow you to move around the map really quickly. Of course, then Misfortune's also one of the best teamfighting AD carries out there as well because of your AoE ultimate. It'll do some insane damage if you're hitting multiple targets in a team fight, and if you do have a Black Cleaver, it'll also shred armor, making any AD champions on your team more effective as well. This is, however, a channeled ultimate, so you can't move when you are casting it, so you have to be very careful whenever you go for this ultimate because people will want to stop you. Although you have decent movement speed from your W, you don't have an actual gap closer, so you have to be very careful in team fights and use that extra movement speed to position properly. Coming in at number 3, we have got Karthus.
Join the chorus of death.
Karthus makes it into this list at number 3 because of his insanely strong global ultimate. When you combine this ultimate with Dark Harvest, you have the potential to kill people on a pretty damn high health pool. As long as you can consistently land your Q ability, you have the potential to do some very high single target damage as well. You do also have multiple AoEs in your kit as well, so you can push lanes really quickly and take down towers if nobody comes to stop you. Karthus is then one of the few champions out there that gets rewarded for jumping into the middle of a team fight and inting. Once you die, you will come back to life and you can dish out all sorts of damage because you will be untargetable. Your E ability will activate and do a bunch of damage over time, and you can spam out those Q abilities to try to do damage to single targets. Your ultimate will of course be castable as well, as long as it is off cooldown, so you can dish out a ton of damage even after you're dead. You are, however, a very immobile champion and you don't have any escapes as well, so you are pretty gankable early on. Therefore, if you want to try to stay alive, you have to be very careful when you position in team fights, but sometimes you may as well just jump in the middle anyways and get off a bunch of AoE damage. Next, coming in at number 2, we have got Draven.
Welcome to the League of Draven.
Draven takes our number 2 spot because he's got some really good harassment and is one of the best lane bullies for all the AD carries out there. His auto attacks will do a ton of damage to enemy teams because of his spinning axes. As long as he can properly utilize these, he will do a lot of extra damage on his auto attacks and also stack his passive, which will net him some extra gold as long as he can get a kill. The potential for all this extra gold from his passive also gives him some really high snowball potential. All it takes is one single kill with a bunch of passive stacks for Draven to take control of the game and start snowballing like crazy. If he can get way ahead, he will have the potential to two-shot squishy targets with his spinning axes. Now Draven of course then has his global ultimate as well, which is great for sniping kills across the map. This can be pretty hard to pull off, however, because it does have a very slow travel time, so it will take a lot of time to get to wherever you're shooting it. A good Draven, however, can sometimes snipe people across the map, and this is a way to get snowballing without even being near that target. Draven, however, is unfortunately a champion that will get camped a lot because you don't have a really solid escape, and when you have a stacked up passive, people will definitely want to kill you. It can take a while to learn how to use your spinning axes effectively as well, so that's something you're going to have to get used to, but in the right hands, Draven is an absolute monster of a champion and has some of the best snowball out there. And coming in at our top spot, we of course have Lucian.
Everybody dies. Some just need a little help.
Lucian takes the number 1 spot basically just because he's the most viable AD carry at the moment. He works great when you combine Press the Attack and his passive Light Slinger because it will proc really quickly and can add a ton of damage into his trades in the early game. He's also a champion that has a lot of mobility as well because of his Relentless Pursuit's dash. This combined with his burst damage gives him some really solid outplay potential and can get Lucian snowballing in the lane phase. As I mentioned before, Press the Attack is insanely strong on Lucian, which allows him to dominate the lane phase against pretty much anybody out there. He also works great with pretty much every support as well, but something like Braum generally works the best because he can proc the stun really quickly and just take absolute control of that fight. Once he does have his full build as well, he can use his E ability pretty much over and over again, and kiting will be incredibly easy for Lucian. Of course, he can also add in his ultimate while he's kiting as well to do a ton of damage to that target as he runs away. He's not the best champion one behind, and his auto attack range is rather low as well, but usually you don't have to worry about this too much because as long as your support champion is at least somewhat competent, it should be pretty easy to win that lane phase. And that covers who I think are the top 5 bot lane carries to learn in Preseason 9. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Do you guys agree with who I put in the top 5, and if not, who do you think I should have put in the spot that they're in? But with that said, thanks again guys, I really do appreciate it. Take it easy, have a good day, and peace.